There are a lot of good games coming out this year already. It's a really, really packed first quarter. And one thing a lot of people are pointing out is that a lot of them are coming out of Japan. I think last year there were a few. There's Final Fantasy 15, Last Guardian. Street Fighter 5 was semi-mediocre-ish, but like some people liked it.
That's not worth getting super excited about. I
right.
mean, the games that I think want to talk about today are the ones that are super exciting, right?
Yeah.
And even the ones you just mentioned, those were only like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like it's just the period alone. Forget the calendar year. Like right now, super hot time.
Momentum carried over from last year or something. So we did want to talk about kind of a couple other years that were really good for Japanese releases. Obviously, there are a lot back in the 90s, but just this year in general, there are already several games which when I was playing them, I was like, this is going to be hard to beat for my game of the year. And then I was looking at the release schedule up ahead, and obviously you don't want to get too hyperbolic and ahead of yourself, but I was playing Resident Evil 7, and as a Resident Evil fan, as someone who is really happy to see this game go back to its roots, as someone who is happy to see Capcom do something great after, like I just mentioned, Street Fighter 5 was kind of a disappointment last year. Resident Evil 6, the last numbered entry, was a huge disappointment. It seems like Capcom knows what they're doing if you were to judge it off Resident Evil 7. I love this game. It's definitely going to be up there when we talk Game of the Year at the end of the year, but yeah, we did like that Reviving Resident Evil documentary series about this game. Scott gave it an 8 out of 10, I believe. Scored well. This game is fantastic for a lot of reasons. I've been wanting to replay it if it wasn't for all these other games that I want to talk about. But did you guys all play it?
I played, a bunch of hours.
I haven't finished it. I'm scared.
Yeah.
It's scary. I get scared easy, and I always find myself playing it like really late at night in like my closed room, lights out.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I was like, it's 1 a.m. Yeah. Time to play.
It's also, did you play in PSVR at all, Pete?
No.
Jean-Luc did play this game a lot. He did a feature on why the Madhouse difficulty is really fun to play, and that video is killing it. Like, people are really interested in... I don't know. I think people play this game and then they want to try it in VR. They want to try it in a harder difficulty because it's kind of known for its difficulty. It's doing really well.
Did he not play the whole game in VR?
He played the whole game in VR, but then he played a lot of it in Madhouse difficulty separately, I believe. He might correct me. I'm not sure if he played that in VR as well. But there's a lot of interest around this game for good reason. I think it took a lot of modern horror game conceits. Like moving to first person, people were saying they were copying Outlast PT, but I don't know. They did. I always keep saying this is sort of akin to if Remake or in first person almost, in the sense that you're in this more isolated area and kind of backtracking in a meaningful way, really getting to know the landscape like you did in Remake or Resident Evil 2's Police Station or Resident Evil 1's Spencer Mansion or even Resident Evil 3's kind of urban Raccoon City. Yeah, I've been kind of overloaded with Resident Evil lately. Mary Kish, former GameSpot producer, I'm sure a lot of people in the chat know her. Her and I still play through all the Resident Evil games on Resident Knievel, that series we do. And 7 was the biggest breath of fresh air because I love Resident Evil. I love Remake. It's one of my favorite games. But, it's easy to get burnt out. This game really reignited my love for the franchise. And it was no small feat for Capcom to do that, especially considering the recent Resident Evil releases and, last year, their big release was Street Fighter 5, and it disappointed, commercially and critically, I think. But moving on from Resident Evil 7, this is a game that, Pete, you played a little bit. Nier, Automata, however you want to say it. Yeah. Really interesting game. We gave it a 9 out of 10. Miguel Concepcion reviewed it. What do you think of it?
So it's, I think Platinum Games gets a bad rap sometimes because they put out things that people are like, well, where's that Platinum magic? Well, here is the Platinum magic. Mm-hmm. This game perfectly encapsulates what they do, but it also brings the Yoko Taro, kind of the principal mind behind the story of the world.
What else did he work on?
Drakengard games, the original Nier. He's worked on sort of a smattering of things, but he's very much into changing up what he does game to game. He never really wants to stay too consistent. And there's just, even in just a couple hours, this game presents a lot of different ideas, both in terms of gameplay and the philosophy, maybe that its characters are considering, and just the philosophy of the world at large. I still have to finish it. There's just so much going on right now, but this game is really cool. And it's nice to see Platinum Games, especially bouncing off of the cancellation of Scalebound, put something out that's just remarkable and catching attention outside of maybe its usual demographic.
Yeah, this is one that I've been not putting off, but I've just kind of I keep tabling because something else comes up, but it's everyone's saying like, I thought I was going to skip it. You should not skip it. Like, don't pass on this because it is really something special, and that means a lot to me, and I'm excited to actually like really get into it. And it has like how many endings?
I think 26.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not all like, like a narrative ending, right? Some are just like quirky little twists to like the credit sequences or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of different things you can get out of this game.
Yeah, you should definitely play this game. I know there's just a lot of other good releases, but yeah, like you said, it's nice to see Platinum after Scalebound being canceled, and what was their last release? Turtles in Manhattan.
Sure.
Mutants in Manhattan. I forget the name of it. It's a forgettable game. This is not. You should play this. The first game was kind of a cult classic, but with Platinum's help and just like Yoko Taro's direction on this weird world, and the progression in this game is fun. The combat is fantastic. The world itself is weird and fun to explore in a year of like really good open worlds. Definitely check this game out. Like I said, that was the giveaway we mentioned earlier, but this is well worth playing if you can find the time. Yakuza 0.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You like this game a lot? Well,
Yeah,
Rob
liked it too.
Yeah.
This is, you're talking about getting people into Persona. Like I played this game and I immediately thought, who would love this? It was Rob. And I was texting him on like a weekend and he was just like, what? Why? This sounds dumb. Okay, sure, dude, I'll give it a shot. And like 2 days later, just huge grin on your face. I mean, it's so hard to explain this game. It's like a super serious Yakuza like drama narrative, and then like low grade gameplay, but done in like a self-aware way that's like dressed with humor and just absurdity. It's such a refreshing break from, I think, a lot of the self-serious stuff that we play all the time, even though it has that stuff in it.
It's self-aware, right?
And just that, you just kind of said it, but just that refreshing dynamic, right?
Yeah.
To like have these really heavy-handed narrative moments, and then it's like throw on some Looney Tunes. Like, I don't know, there's something about it that is so appealing, and it keeps you, like, just jumpstarts your brain like every so often. It's really fun.
Yeah, it doesn't like hinge, like, yeah, it's an open world game, but it doesn't hinge like its success on like the biggest open world with all this stuff, right? It's just what you need, right? And even when you explore that world, you find things like arcades, you join a real estate company and you get to manage property, like all these various things. Then it opens up into a whole other city. There are places where you can go to watch softcore porn. That is very embarrassing. There's all sorts of stuff.
Sick too.
This guy, I love this character so much.
He's such a prick.
Sick, so sick chest paddles on those tats though.
I saw like a video of the main character like really dramatically answering the phone. Like it takes 10 whole seconds.
Yeah.
And then he like picks it up and it's just like moshi moshi.
Yeah.
And it's just like I think that's the perfect, like it's so serious and it's like just kidding, we weren't that serious.
One of my favorite like mini quests was this girl finds you and she's like, hey, I told my dad that I'm dating a guy and you look just like him. Can you help me talk to my dad to convince him I wasn't lying? And that character in particular is this really tall dude with a ponytail and an eye patch. So and it's like, I look like the guy you described to your dad. She's like, yes, perfectly. So you go and like this dad is like grilling you, and the daughter gets up to go to the bathroom, and dad goes, look, I know you're not her boyfriend. I'm just doing this because I love my daughter. And like,
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
it's like such a but the whole time before that conversation, you're trying to like answer his questions that are like, I never thought about what I do for a living. I never thought about oh crap, like all this stuff.
It's like the plot of Summer Wars. Have you seen Summer Wars?
Oh no. People have told me to watch it. I haven't seen it.
No, yeah, like that side quest reminds me of another one where it's just, you're led to believe it's the one where you're helping a kid whose game got stolen, and you're just it's what seems to be very generic and like systematic. Like, okay, I know I gotta go from this guy to this guy to this guy. By the end of it, you're kind of like slapped across the face with like a complete twist that like is endearing, where you're just like, wow, you were completely leading me into like believing this was going to end how I would expect it, but no, I like it.
Right.
It happens like very often with each of these just generic, what seem to be generic mini like side quests. Yeah.
Kicking off the year, one game that kind of ended up flying under the radar, maybe because subsequent releases, but Gravity Rush 2.
Flying, I like what you did there. I think I don't know. Like, I think I like this game more than most people. It didn't review as high, maybe in line with like what I had to say. I gave it a 9. I think it's certainly very different in what it does with this whole gravity mechanic. And the first game had that too, but it feels like the world is designed to sort of make that more enjoyable now in this game. And Kat is just a wonderful character. I really like her. It's it's just something so different, and it just really struck a chord with me.
You think it's worth maybe giving it some time before you finish all the other games to go back and check out if you haven't yet?
I think it's definitely worth trying. I mean, how many games let you literally, like, it's not even fly, like, because you fly, but then you can land on any surface and gravity changes to that surface, right? So you can walk on walls like it's nothing, and it really changes your perspective on the world, let alone what advantages it gives you, in combat or exploration. And it looks a lot like, sort of a Ghibli-esque universe as well. Like when you start to interact with it, you realize that more and more, and you find certain things. It just rang true to me.
Another early game this year that I absolutely adore from Team Ninja is Nioh. If you were to tell me when they first announced it, I played a preview at GDC last year, I believe. People who made Ninja Gaiden are doing a Dark Souls structured game. And it's kind of, when this game released, we kind of had to ask ourselves, is that Dark Souls structure becoming a genre unto itself almost, that style of RPG? Nioh is the one game, even after Zelda, even after Nier, after Resident Evil 7, Nioh is the one game I absolutely know I'm going to go back and finish, and I want to, and I can't wait. I love this game. It might be like my second favorite game of the year so far, and it surprised me because I didn't expect to really like it because they were clearly like very self-aware about it, but chasing that Dark Souls formula, and they nailed it, and they put their own twist on it, and the Japanese, taking like Japanese folklore and actually basing it off this Englishman, Edward, I forget his last name, who came and became a samurai. He was the first like Westerner to become a samurai in actual history, but kind of parodying that in some ways in this. This game is awesome. I can't speak highly enough of it. I know Eric Tay liked it. Miguel Concepcion gave it a 9 out of 10 when he reviewed it. This game's also really hard. This makes Dark Souls 3, which came out last year, seem easy by comparison. And I'm not exaggerating. I think Dark Souls games are very difficult, but I have far more trouble beating something in this game than I do in Dark Souls. But fast paced, it's a little twitchier, as you can kind of see. And then there's a lot of, like high, low, mid stances you can see on the HUD there with your sword.
Rip.
This game is, I can't speak highly enough of it. I hate fighting that guy. I have not beaten him yet. But yeah, play Nioh if you are into those kind of games, or even if you want to try something new and want something really difficult and rewarding.
Do you think if you're not used to those games, though, you can start on like the most difficult one you've played?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unique, and it's kind of has its own individual traits that set it apart. Mainly in the overarching structure, it's not this interconnected kind of open world like Dark Souls games are, or Bloodborne.
Right.
It is, you select a mission, go into it, and then you can return afterwards to do like Twilight versions, which give you better loot. Sorry, the loot is also a huge part of this game. Dark Souls, you get one weapon, and they almost encourage you or force you to concentrate on one or two weapons to upgrade them completely through these specific materials that will upgrade them. This encourages you and almost forces you to switch weapons a lot, or at least you get one weapon that you'll get a higher familiarity with, which will help you be better with it. But so you kind of want to stick to one weapon once you get used to it, but you're going to find a better one like down the road. And like I said, I know Eric Tay really liked this game. I haven't really picked his brain on what he thinks of it compared to a Dark Souls game. And, not to be reductive, but that's the clear comparison to make. But this game is fantastic. I'm looking forward to potential sequels in the future. I haven't even beaten this yet, and I'm already looking forward to games they might follow up with. But this is that one that I really want to go back and finish. It feels great mechanically, structurally. It's very well designed, but just like it's really rewarding in general. But yeah, anyway, I've talked enough about that. Moving on to, before we get to Persona, because that just released yesterday, I want to end with that. The one that I think, obviously Zelda, every outlet, I mean, it got tens. I can't think of a place, there are individual people and there are individual reviewers that didn't absolutely love it, but still liked it. But I think by and large, it got tens all over the place, right? They start popping up everywhere. Pete, you gave it a 10. A lot of us who were playing while you were reviewing were like, yeah, I think Pete might give it a 10. We all agree with that, or a lot of us agree with that. I think everyone here has played it a lot. And I do have a question on Twitter about our potential game of the year so far. And I feel like, not to take words out of people's mouth, this might be what they say, but I don't know.
I've not seen a single game have such a lasting impact on our conversations, like day to day.
Yeah.
I mean, this game came out a month ago, and we still talk about it every single day.
I play
with
it every
excitement
day.
and joy.
Yeah.
Even just this morning.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, we were talking about it.
Yeah.
It's a game that I think revolutionizes a lot of what makes open world games special, and it does so in a way that's super just organic and natural. It doesn't feel like you have to learn all these new things. Like, you learn them in the game, but you've learned them kind of naturally. And then by the end, you're like, I can't think of an experience I've ever had where I could just do and combine so many things together. And the game had never really gone out of its way to tell you, right? I mean, it's that process of discovery, but then also looking back and thinking like, wow, all the things I have done in this game, it's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to just feel great about.
This game is, so unlike Zelda games, right? It feels like it's taken such a risk with like just difficulty right off the bat, and then you think about the open world mechanic of like getting on a tower and then picking your own areas to explore. I find that so awesome, and I think about any other like Assassin's Creed or like similar type game where I don't know how I will look at those games now. Like, as far as like seeing a map with everything laid out for me. Yeah, make your own story with this game. It's what it feels like, and that's what everyone's been doing.
There's going to be a weird fallout following this. Like, once we start to see, more games come out in the coming months, it's going to be like, well, I think, like you said, I think about these things differently now because we live in a world where this is a game.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? 2 or 3 weeks before this release, you gave Horizon a 9, and it's a fantastic game. That's not a Japanese release,
right,
but it's... You loved it, and for a lot of the open world reason, and I do too.
But that was pre-Zelda, Pete.
Yeah, it's weird. Like a couple weeks later, it was a new. You just are forced to look at these games differently.
Yeah,
because of Zelda.
I think the praise I have for Horizon mostly still stands, but Zelda certainly has taken my attention away from it.
Yeah,
I find myself playing other games and wishing I could do the things I can do in Breath of the Wild. And it's weird, like I have impulses now that I didn't before.
Yeah.
I also do want to say that it's very Ghibli in a lot of ways, and I think it has one of my favorite iterations of Zelda ever. I just finished all the memories, and so now I can say that definitively.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
There's more to her than there has been.
Kelly, I think you were at IGN when Metal Gear Solid 5 released.
I was.
Did you? So that I think when you said, Pete, that this has kind of dominated our conversations, our water cooler conversations in the office. I think the last game I can think of that did that was Metal Gear Solid 5.
And Witcher 3.
Yeah.
And Witcher 3, yeah.
Witcher 3.
Yeah. I mean, but certainly not for as long, and not with as much variety. Of like it was like we're sharing like folk tales with each other.
Yeah, I mean, like I literally found something a couple days ago, and I was like, why didn't anyone tell me I could do this?
Yeah. It's still happening, right? Yesterday they showed that person who put a metal box on a minecart. So standing on top of the metal box allowed them to move the minecart beneath them because they weren't on the minecart, so it didn't automatically turn off magnesis. Yeah. Which is crazy. And then they went up to like the invisible ceiling of Hyrule and just started flying around on that. But yeah, I think maybe I'm comparing it to Metal Gear Solid 5 when we do that just because of that emergent gameplay. All the stories we're telling aren't scripted plot points, aren't cutscenes. They are. I mean, we can talk about those memories all we want, but it's stuff like this. It's, climbing a cliff in a rainstorm right after you just fought a bunch of moblins and you're just half dead, and it was really tense just getting to the top of this summit. Or, like snowboarding down this specific mountain over this narrow bridge that no one else has seen, or finding that Eventide Island where it was almost like this survival trial. Stumbling across these things is just the stories in themselves that we all share. And I think Metal Gear Solid 5 was the last time I felt like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe my favorite thing, and the reason that I can play this game, many of us can over 100 hours, is it's really good at keeping its grand ideas like present but kind of hidden. Like, as you realize the more you can do and the rules of the world, you still see new challenges that are there, but they're not like quests, right? It's getting to a certain place like you described. It's being able to master something, and the game doesn't force you to do it. It just allows you to kind of figure it out. Metal Gear was a case where I think it was so much dependent on your equipment that when you got the equipment, you were kind of like, okay, well now I can do that thing that I've been thinking about. Here, it's like it's more about your like intuition and your understanding of Link's just basic skills to get it done.
And the environment, right? Like,
right.
I think one of the reasons why I'm really still liking it is because I think so many games have that fault of, by the late end game, you're so overpowered, right? With like, you've maxed everything out, you're wrecking enemies left and right. But then there's something about like even just me playing like climbing a mountain and I slip because I'm climbing a mountain and I'm out of stamina. Oh crap! There's a river below me. I'm dead.
Yeah, or
and that's you forgetting. Like, and that's where you kind of have that wake up call where, you got to be attentive with this game, and that's what's so enjoyable.
At first I really was annoyed with the weapons breaking all the time, but the further I get into this game, the more grateful I am for that, because it has extended the amount of time I can stay in this version of Hyrule, if that makes sense. Like I still have one more divine beast that I've been putting off because I know once I do that, I'm gonna be like, I should probably go fight Ganon now. But I haven't felt overpowered. I mean, I have like 3 rings of stamina and I'm doing all that, but I still feel like, okay, to get all the way over there, I can't climb this mountain. There's no way I can do it. Or, oh no, it's raining. Well, now what am I gonna do? It has such a long tail to it. I love it so much.
Yeah, no, we talked about Zelda a lot on the lobby, and we've covered it a lot, and we still are covering a lot because there's a lot to cover. We've also talked about Persona 5 a lot recently, and I do have a question on Twitter about like what so far is our Game of the Year contender, and I'm sure a lot of people would say Zelda, and I think I would too. But just to play devil's advocate, I won't shut up about Persona 5, and I know a lot of people won't. That's nothing out of the ordinary, but I like JRPGs a lot. I like stuff of this style, and it still surprised me though. I'm not a Persona fan coming into this, and I've been playing it, and I've been telling people come over and ask me about it, and I can't shut up about it. Lucy James, you can read her review. She gave it a 9 out of 10. She loved it. I know Timur Hussein over in the UK and Miguel Concepcion here have both been playing it a lot as well. I'm in love with this game. I can't stop playing it. It's torn me away from Zelda. They're not the same thing at all, but maybe that's why I'm really enjoying it, because it's different from that open world immersion gameplay. This is kind of the feeling I wanted from Mass Effect, this linear story where you develop these relationships, but I'm not in it for this like social sim parts. I like that those feed into this world a lot. I like that those affect your combat and your camaraderie in the team, how they work together in the combat and in these dungeon crawls in indirect ways. But I fell in love with this game immediately almost, and I can't stop playing it.
What keeps bringing you back? Like, what are you excited to like get into when you turn this thing on?
It's weird. I love that the grind is fun in this game, and it doesn't even feel like grinding. It feels weird to call it grinding because people who play Persona know you're thieves that go into this metaverse, this kind of Matrix alternate reality, which is a psychological manifestation of like villains' minds or hearts, they say, kind of their soul, and you have to steal the treasure and essentially change their heart in the real world to make them good people or confess for their sins. You're vigilantes, and there's a lot of actual philosophical stuff in the game about whether you are doing good deeds or whether this is just as fucked up as what they're doing. But I mean, you go into this world and the characterization is even deeper because you see like Pete, what hooked me on this before I played it, he was telling me like, the personas that attach themselves to your characters are the things you suppress in real life. So on here, it's dressed like her persona is like a dominatrix, Carmen from this book. It escapes me, the novel. But and then you have Ryuji, who's a rebel, kind of his Captain Kidd, the pirate, is his persona. It's what they suppress in the real world, like their sexuality or their rebellious nature, or even their kind of their confidence that they might not have in the real world. And it's interesting to see how the real world, through stats and through your building your confidant relationships, so you can have new abilities, or going around Tokyo during this high school point in the main character's life, and seeing how that affects the metaverse. But also it gets even more interesting to me to see how stuff that these characters are doing in the metaverse affects their real personalities, and how you can see that kind of flourish too. And I don't know, the combat is great. The negotiations are really fun. If you can stun people or like subdue them for long enough, you get to absorb them. It kind of becomes almost like Pokemon. I tell people who aren't familiar with the series, she's my favorite character, Makoto. Her persona's like a Tron-like motorcycle. It's awesome that she rides. Johanna. Cool. Yeah. And she uses like brass knuckles and shit. She's awesome. But this game has hooked me. And if there's another Game of the Year contender for me right now, it is Persona 5.
Okay.
I would say it's kind of an interesting take in my eyes on like the superhero genre, except your alternate superhero has more meaning, right? In the reflection of your real life. opposed to like putting on a mask and being so like amazingly awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like an interesting take on like the counter opposite or something. That's kind of intriguing.
And I usually don't like melodramatic stuff, and I know that's kind of become a trope for JRPGs, or at least, I mean, like, you know, looking at it on a surface level, it's not always the case. But I mean, this is a high school melodrama, right? These characters, they'll state obvious things in a really stylish way. I mean, the game's stylish; everybody sees that. Going between the menus, the music, this jazz kind of rock, weird hybrid soundtrack. But I really like the characters, and people are telling me it's like a social sim, and I don't really like things like that. But again, it feeds into the game in a meaningful way, and you have these time limits before you have to go do these heists. Almost made me feel like preparing for a heist in GTA 5. Bad comparison, the games aren't similar, but I like that they have a time limit so the grind feels meaningful.
I do want to touch on something you said earlier, is that this is very much not the same thing as Zelda, and I think that's true for all of the games we talked about. All these Japanese games are very distinct and different, and we've gotten a really good variety. In addition to it being like a good year so far for Japanese games, like this is a game you can put in 100 plus hours into, and it's very different from sinking 100 hours into Zelda or sinking a ton of hours into Nioh. And I think that's also worth noting. Like, these aren't all the same thing. And going back to like what's your early game of the year contender? I mean, it's very hard to say because these aren't one-to-one comparisons. Like, this is, you put 100 hours into these social links and into getting to know these characters and seeing, what does your persona reveal about who you are. Versus, go in Zelda, exploring a world and discovering something new and having your own story to tell. Like, it's very different. It's hard to say because none of them are the same.
Yeah.
Getting a level 4 upgrade on that Chilean armor, right?
Worth it.
Yeah, really quick. Mark M on Twitter, before we close this segment, was asking so far what our game of the year contender is. Callie.
Zelda.
Rob.
Same.
Yeah. Pete.
Yeah, Zelda.
Just to play devil's advocate, I would probably say Zelda, but I'm going to say Persona 5 right now, and I'm about halfway through it. But yeah.
So Zelda.
No, Persona 5.
Okay.
No, just kidding. But seriously.